Welcome to B2B No Bull.
That's right, no double speaker gibberish, no talking heads. This is a safe place to talk about what you as professionals in the space can do to look like heroes to your bosses, make sales very happy, bring success to the organization, and that bottom line. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Olivieri, and I'm here with Liz Brohan and her brother, Mark Brohan. They are not married. And we are here today to talk No Bull with our guest, Klaus Werner. But before I dive into all of Klaus's credentials, I am just really intrigued to talk about this topic, right? The fractional CMO.
Me too. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around how to make that work. It sounds really hard to me.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be good. Yeah, Klaus knows all about this because you are indeed a fractional CMO. So let's talk a little bit about Klaus. He is the Chief Marketing and Digital Officer / Advisor at Agility Group, and he has been there for several years. He's also a transformative C-suite exec who knows how to, and here comes a bunch of those words, he knows how to scale, evolve, and modernize businesses across industries. And how he does this? Well, let me tell you, through leadership and technology, strategy, analytics, sales, marketing, and service, right? He acts as a bridge between disparate functions, and he brings experience gained as a technologist and global business strategist to create the solutions that move industries forward. So what am I really saying there? Let's just say that Klaus is a unicorn. And he brings a variable amount of skill sets all in one human being, which is kind of exciting, and it makes him very valuable. Plus, people trust him too, right? He has actually overseen billion-dollar P&Ls. He's led global teams of 500 plus folks. He's driven international expansions and, of course, digital transformations, operating at the intersection of commercial technology and business strategies. I'm going to stop talking now and give Klaus a chance to talk.
Well, I just need to say that with all those credentials, I would want you as a full-time CMO. I wouldn't want just a fraction of you.
And he's also the fractional CFO at Hartwell and fractional CMO at Global Industrial. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining us today, Klaus. I know our listeners are going to want to hear a lot about what it is you do and how you change companies for the better.
Well, Mary, thank you for the amazing introduction. I really appreciate your kind words. I'm humbled by them. Just so for a quick correction, I am the former CMO at Global Industrial and the former fractional CMO at Hartwell Companies.
Okay.
But nonetheless, I've been doing this for a very long time. I have a 38-year career. I started very, very young. And I've been doing marketing, e-commerce across industries. I've done it in grocery. I've done it in financial services. I've done it in telecommunications, retail, and B2B. And I just love what I do. I love going and working with teams and solving problems. And Liz, to your point, I'm available if you need me as a full-time CMO. I'm happy to work for you starting tomorrow.
Noted. That's awesome. Well, one of the things I wanted to start with is in the typical B2B space, B2B marketers can be slow getting into market. They can be slow getting campaigns going. They can be kind of late even getting product launches off the ground. So when you step in as a fractional CMO, how do you make all that happen? Or can you speed up the cycle, or does it slow down?
No, it's a great question. And one of the things is my company's name is Agility Group, right? Which is agility with an E. And E is all about e-commerce, right? So how do you use technology and e-commerce to scale and move really fast? And when you are brought in as a fractional CMO, there's a couple of reasons companies do that. They do it because it's more cost effective. It's because they add flexibility. It also gives the ability to have some fast impact because as a fractional, you are not burdened by internal bureaucracy. Yeah. The only thing that stops you is yourself and the team, because what you want to do is you want to drive quick change and execution And you don't bring all of those issues or processes that exist in organizations. You're coming in to have quick impact, to drive change, to drive some execution, and that's one of the key reasons why they bring fractional CMOs, right? So it's all about building quick relationships, understanding what problems need to be solved, and moving fast, failing if you need to, but you fail fast and you fail forward, right? And that's kind of the idea behind bringing somebody in like that.
When did the trend become a trend? I mean, you and I go back a long way in B2B e-com, especially when your days were running $1 billion CMO job over there at Global Industrial, for those who don't know. But my question to you is, I've been covering this stuff a long time. Where did this trend come from? And is it accelerating, or is it a spur of the moment thing? What's the arc of this thing, do you think?
You know what's really interesting? I was looking at a stat earlier this morning that said, and let me look at it, the demand for fractional executive roles, including CMOs, has increased 57% since 2020, with a significant 18% rise from 2021 to 2022. So when you think about that, I believe that in a lot of ways, COVID had a lot to do with it, right? A 57% raise since 2020 is as companies started realizing, like I said earlier, it's a cost-effective way of bringing talent with a lot of flexibility, with the ability to have some fast impact and getting some expert guidance, right? It's just the ability to move quickly. And since COVID changed the world, the people's appetite to bring somebody fractionally changed because the world changed, and things that were seen as impossible or very difficult in the past became pretty easy to do with all the technology that became ubiquitous when COVID hit and everybody went online.
So, Klaus, you talked about, like, you get in there and you hit the ground running, right? I imagine there's a level of trust that has to be built, or do you think it's inherent when you're brought in as a fractional CMO?
I think it's a combination of things. I did 5 years in consulting, and one of the things that I learned is that when you come in as a consultant, you have credibility from day one because they've hired you as an expert to get the job done. And I think some of that translates to the fractional, where you come with a higher level of credibility that you would if you came in as a full-time employee. With that being said, you still have to earn it. You know, you have to earn the respect, credibility, and build relationships inside the organization in order to be effective. But you have a little bit of an advantage because, again, you're brought in as an experienced leader, and you're also brought in normally with a charter with 3 to 5 things that you need to accomplish to be effective. So I think that helps you move fast, but you can quickly unravel if you don't take the time to meet the team, listen to them, right, earn their respect, and earn some credibility. But with that being said, you can still move a little bit faster because of the charter that's been given to you.
Now, you've worked for big brands and medium-sized brands. Can you give us a little perspective here? Where are you seeing the most need for these fractional CMOs, including the roles you've been filling? I mean, is it more of a big guy, big company kind of movement, or is it more of a mid-sized type of thing? Or what kind of trends are you seeing there?
Yeah, small to mid-size. I did a 5-month engagement with a $30 million company, so I would call them small. And what that happens is that the small company wants to be able to bring an experienced leader that they would otherwise not be able to hire to come in really quick, very surgically to help them with some things, right? So I'm seeing it more from small to medium-sized companies. When you look at the big companies, normally they have very deep benches. Normally they have big budgets. And normally you don't want to skimp on the CMO talent at a multi-billion-dollar company. Whereas the smaller markets, the smaller companies and smaller markets normally benefit greatly from hiring this kind of talent.
I'd also love to know, how do you bring all the teams together? Internal marketing, agencies, you mentioned the mandates that you get and the credibility that you get being hired in as a consultant. Does that make it easier to bring teams together? And have you had experience where it wasn't so easy?
Yes, of course. I mean, in 38 years, you see everything, right? But what I can tell you is the 5 years that I spent in consulting, most of them at Publicis, Rosetta Publicis, you quickly learn the consulting playbook, which is come in, do a quick discovery, and start putting some thoughts together and move into execution pretty quickly. Because a consultant's role, your success is predicated on you moving fast, but also with a lot of thoughtful discipline. So over the years, I've developed a playbook. Like I said, go in, just do a quick assessment, do some discovery, identify the low-hanging fruit, start getting some quick wins, start bringing everybody together towards these 3 to 5 clearly articulated vision points that you want to move forward against, and moving forward in that direction and bringing everybody along. In a recent assignment, in the first 30 days, it became crystal clear to me that we did not have the right agency partner. So quickly moved in getting that agency partner out and bringing another one in that was a better fit. Again, there's no good or bad agencies. There's good and bad fits, and this one just happened to be a bad fit for the phase this company was in. But we have to make a quick change there, right? But you got to assess the situation and have the courage to make some quick changes, because without doing that and without having the courage to really making the change, you will not be able to have the impact that your client is expecting you to bring to the table.
With you mentioned that there's a growth curve for this kind of role that a CMO plays. I'm curious about what I call the dance here, which is we have a lot of listeners out there in B2B marketing land that are probably really want to know all about how to get into this, how to set themselves up for success versus failure. But my core question to you is, how do you find a situation? How do they find you? And then how do you make sure that you're going in for a win-win versus, you get there and it's not exactly what you expect?
Yeah, so that's a very multi-tier question. So let me try to tackle it one point at a time.
Klaus,
I'm good at that.
That's his hallmark.
He's notorious for that.
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, how do I find the work, or how do they find me? It's just being out there. Like being on this podcast is a good example. Another example is going out and speaking at conferences. I was speaking at a conference in Chicago, and when I was finished with my presentation, there was a line of 3 people that wanted to talk to me. One of them resulted in a $200,000-$300,000 multi-year engagement. Another one resulted in a great relationship that I still treasure today. And the third one resulted in me doing some business development and pitching, and it went nowhere, right? And that's a really good way. Normally, you talk to 5 people, you may get business from 1 or 1 out of 10. So you're like Wayne Gretzky said, and I'm going to try to not to butcher his quote, you're going to miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, right? So if you're not taking shots and talking to people, you're never going to get the business or get the opportunities. So it's just getting yourself out there, posting on LinkedIn, publishing articles, participating in conferences and podcasts, looking at opportunities out there, looking at job openings, and maybe there's a job opening that they were going to hire someone and then decided to go fractional as a proof of concept, and building relationships. So it's all about relationships and just getting your name out there.
If that was a show, I think it is. That was one hell of a show. Was that our show, Envision B2B?
It was.
I thought so.
So you're talking about these different experiences you've had as a fractional CMO, and I think our listeners might be interested in hearing something that was wildly successful, and then something that, you still think about and either laugh or go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. Do you have any stories like that for us in this role?
Yes.
You don't have to name names.
No, I don't plan on it. I think, not from a fractional perspective, but on my full-time job as a CMO of Global Industrial, one of the things that was incredible successful was the rebrand of the company, right? So how do we differentiate ourselves against a very crowded space of industrial distributors? We rebranded ourselves by coming up with a very unique logo, bold colors, cheeky language, and we kind of capped everything off with a NASCAR sponsorship, right? To be able to kind of be out there in front of the people that are making purchase decisions in the B2B space, in the distribution space. So global industrial, I would say, was something that went well, and it was from A to Z, an execution of a company rebrand and high upper funnel strategy that we hit it out of the park, right? In terms of things not working, though, I think normally, like I said earlier, there's no good or bad agencies. It's just a matter that different agencies intersect companies sometimes at the right time, and there's a good fit and a bad fit depending on where the company is in their journey. The same applies to a fractional CMO, right? There's been some engagements that have not been that well because the companies were not ready for the change that is required for them to scale. But I was working for a company that really did not, while they wanted to change and scale, that's what they were saying, but they did not have the courage to make changes in the decisions that needed to be done for them to become, $100 million, $200 million company. So that was not a good fit, right?
But do you have some tips for companies to do it successfully? Like you've walked in there and it didn't work, or it did, no fault of your own in some cases, right? And so what would you say to a company or somebody who owns a company who is considering bringing in a fractional CMO? What is going to make it a success for them?
I think that's a great question. What's going to make it a success is be willing to change, be willing to listen, and be willing to challenge, right? Normally, what I tell companies is what got you here is not going to get you there. And that's what a lot of companies don't realize. It's like, wow, we've had a lot of success over the last 10 years, growing at 30%. So if we continue to do these things, we're going to grow another 30%. And that's false, because once you reach an inflection point that unless you make some changes and have the courage to make some difficult decisions, you're not going to scale. So be able to realize what got you here is not going to get you there.
Is that how you... I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll ask my question in a minute.
Okay, and there's also the culture fit, right? Sometimes you're not the right fit for that company's culture. Again, that doesn't mean that you're good and they're bad, or they're bad and they're good. It just means that, there's certain companies that have a certain culture and a way of doing things, and they need a particular temperament of a fractional CMO that is going to fit within their culture. And I think that's also really important. Just because you're not a good culture fit for the Brohan company does not mean that you're not a good culture fit for the Mary company, right? It's just a matter of there's different people that fit better within different organizations.
Nice.
There's no culture like our culture.
Exactly.
Better than yogurt.
Yeah. I was so intrigued when you started talking about challenge and challenging the company that you're working for and the goals that you've all set together. I'd love to understand, and your NASCAR experience is perfect for this because I'm a huge believer in promotional overlay, but that was a huge one. How did you sell that in?
That's a great question. That was a difficult sell because the company was not accustomed to doing these kinds of things. It was a company that was more accustomed on very much direct performance marketing, mostly mid to lower funnel. And NASCAR is upper funnel, right? It's the long play. It's a long run. And what's beautiful about what we were able to accomplish with NASCAR is that NASCAR actually brought a lot of internal teams together, because to execute NASCAR effectively, it is a sales play, it's a marketing play, but it also was a partnership play, because what's beautiful about NASCAR is the B2B elements, is that all of these NASCAR sponsors like to get together and see how can we work together. So for instance, the car that Global Industrial is in is the 21 car that is driven by Austin Hill. But also that car is also co-sponsored by a company called Bennett Transportation and Logistics. So just look at the great marriage of having an industrial distributor being a NASCAR sponsor with a transportation and logistics company, right? So it's not only the sponsorship, but also the relationships that you build in the industry. We built relationships with DuPont. We built relationships, like I said, with Bennett Transportation and a bunch of other companies out there that were interested in how can we take this sponsorship to the next level. which goes beyond the sponsorship, which goes beyond entertaining your clients in the 32 different markets that the races take place. It goes a lot further than that. It was a beautiful thing. So, and at the end of the day, we were able to sell it on those elements. And then the ongoing sponsorship, I think they're now on their fourth year, is because it has proven to increase customer unaided awareness of the brand. Because again, you are on television 32 weekends a year on national television with your brand running around the track. And that all gets tracked by Nielsen, and the customers were able to see it. So it was a beautiful thing. It was very efficient. Great return, great for employee morale, great for relationship building in the industry. I mean, it was a home.
How were you able to measure it? Or were you able to measure it? Because it's so hard to measure top of funnel awareness.
Yeah, we measured it a couple of ways. One of them is customer sat, benchmark surveys every 6 months, and we saw our unaided customer awareness go up. And when we double clicked on why, there was a high percentage of customers that said it was because of NASCAR, because we saw you on NASCAR. The other way we measure it is Nielsen has this really neat tool that shows you how many seconds your logo was on TV. And then it looks at the number of people that were looking at that television broadcast. And then it turns that into a number, a dollar number of media value. So we were able to see our media value continuing to go up because we were lucky enough and strategic enough to select an up-and-coming driver that ended up being amazing. He's won Daytona 3 times. He's won Atlanta 5 times. He came in, I think, second or third last year in the championship. So when you have a driver that is top 10, you're going to get all of those eyeballs because he's going to be mentioned on TV time and time again. So that's how we measured it. And again, having the right driver and the right partner was also a big part of the equation.
Better lucky than good, as I always say. So what you did, if I'm hearing all of this correctly, is you were really able to step in, raise the level of performance within the entire organization, take them to a place they probably never even imagined. How do you do that with the teams when you're not necessarily selling in a big sponsorship?
Again, you have to cater your recipe to the event and to the number of people that are going to be there, right? So again, if you're cooking for a wedding for 300 people, there's going to be a different recipe than if you have like a more intimate dinner with 10 people. And that's the way the analogy I like to use when you're working, depending on the size of the company. You have to really shift and say, okay, how I'm going to approach this particular engagement differently than the other one, right? Because like I said, I've had engagements with companies as small as $10, $20 million a year, 700-800 million to multi-billion, right? And you just have to be able to cater it to the right size company, right size team to be able to be successful. It's kind of the best way I can explain it.
Switching back to fractional CMOs for a second, if I could, can you talk about the skill set that is most in demand from companies that would want to retain a fractional CMO? And then I got a couple of more, which is, I mean, you got to have the marketing chops.
On, Mark.
You got to have the marketing chops. That's understood. But when you go in, are you immediately responsible for the P&L for the whole marketing team? And then who do you have to engage with? I mean, is it primarily just sales and marketing, or you're across the entire C-suite during your tenure there?
Yeah, so most of the time when they're looking for a fractional, they're looking for some more in the lower funnel, somebody a little bit more around performance marketing, right? Direct response, like you can look at your value right away. So that's what I've noticed pretty much, that's where the interest is, because there's you can move the needle a lot quicker on performance marketing direct response than you can do on mid to upper funnel, right? So that's what I've noticed the most is what they're looking for. And you may or may not be responsible for the P&L. Normally, you want to negotiate with the CEO or whoever is sponsoring you. Normally, it's the CEO, the CFO, or the COO. You want to negotiate, how are you going to measure my success? They may give you a portion of the P&L. They may give you the whole P&L. They may give you some more soft objectives depending on the length of the assignment, but that varies from one engagement to the other.
What about the skill set, though? I mean, I've been around B2B commerce for so long, I've got opinions on it, which is sometimes these guys are dinosaurs. They don't move at all, or they move at a hell of a slow pace. So if you're the fractional CMO looking to engage with one of these traditional B2B companies, pick HVAC, industrial supplies, on down the list here, my core question is, how skilled do you need to be in the new digital media, which is changing all the time, versus traditional marketing for a very traditional B2B company?
Yeah, you need somebody that is broad. You can benefit. You need somebody that is broader rather than deeper, right? Like I said, because you want somebody that can see the big picture, understands technology. If you need to pick one skill set, definitely performance and digital is the absolute most important one, because you can move the needle quicker there. But the broader the fractional talent is, the better off you're going to be, because you're going to be able to leverage this person for brand. You can leverage this person for e-commerce. You can leverage this person for customer acquisition and retention, analytics. So the broader the talent, the more value you're going to get. But again, let me make sure that I want to really drive this point home. The organization needs to be ready for the change. Sometimes they think they're ready, but they really are not, and then they fall back into their old habits. And it's important to be ready for change and be willing to take some risks.
So as we're about to wrap up, I wanted to ask you, and this is for the listeners out there, somebody who might be considering doing a fractional role. What are the pros and cons, in your opinion, of having that role?
Well, the pros are obviously the fact that you get exposed to a variety of different industries, companies, and people, and business problems, and you are able to have impact and leave an organization in a better place than it was in the short time that you're going to be there. The cons is that you don't have like constant work, right? You may be employed for 3 to 5, 6, 7, 8 months, and then you have to start over. So you have to be able to, or have the stomach to be able to know that, hey, this, I'm going to be doing work and be really busy working 10, 12-hour days, and then I'm going to spend the next 3 or 4 months doing business development, trying to find my next gig. So you need to have the stomach and the ability to do that. So that's what I would see the cons. And the other part of the con is, you are so proud of something you did, and then you don't get to see it going through fruition. And, wow, I wish I was here for another 10 months so that I can see this whole thing kind of exploding and seeing the whole benefit. So sometimes if you have a lot of pride in your work, that's kind of a bummer.
Absolutely. I would want the results, right?
Yeah, but it also seems like a pro is you are meeting a lot of people in these organizations. Do you find that an opportunity to get your next gig? Like, have you had a CEO introduce you to somebody else and said, hey, we've used Klaus and he's fantastic, check it out? Does that work in your favor?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. There's a little bit of that, or at least you have references that are always going to be out there for you if you do a good job. So absolutely.
Good.
I would imagine there's recurring opportunity if you do a good job. I wouldn't let you go. If you're doing a good job, there's recurring. But these roles are intended to have a beginning and an end, right? So it's, you got to kind of look at it that way, and don't take it personally if you're not there. If they don't renew you, or it's okay, because again, if you are able to go in and have the impact, and you leave after 10 to 12 months, and then they bring a full-time CMO, you've achieved a successful opportunity, and you can see the fruits of your labor continuing on for years to come, right? Like I said, with Global Industrial, I was there as a permanent CMO for 3.5 years, but I still have a lot of pride to see a lot of the things that I led when I was there continue to be out in the market. So to me, it's very satisfying to see that.
One lightning round question here. Is the op for you more on the B2B side or the B2C side?
Like Mary said at the beginning, and again, she called me a unicorn, and I guess I love doing both. I think that they're both equally challenging. and equally exciting. So I can say that I'm really good at both. I have my heart is in B2B because that's what I've been doing for the last, 8 years or so of my career. But I did a couple of small stints in B2C, and I love them as well. It just brought back that energy of being in retail and focusing on customer acquisition and retention and loyalty, which again is just as important B2B, but it's a little bit different on the B2C, right? So I think I love both. I have a little bit more towards B2B in my heart, but I can do either one. I'd be super happy.
Excellent. Well, we just want to thank you for being part of our podcast today. You really hit it on the head with the No Bull. You told us what to do, how to do it, how to be successful, and gave us great examples. So we appreciate that. If any of you listeners are interested in how to become a fractional CMO, Klaus has an exciting offer for you. He'd like to talk to you about how to become a fractional CMO, show you the ropes, and tell you how to be successful. So go ahead and email Klaus at agilitygroup.com. That's Egility with an E. And I also just want to say very quickly, we appreciate our sponsors. We have two great sponsors. One is the Motion Agency. They are ranked number 8th as the premier B2B agency here in the U.S. And then we have Embas, who is a consulting firm that specializes in content creation, business strategy, and marketing communications. So thank you all.
Yeah, until
Thanks,
next
Klaus.
time, watch us on YouTube and listen again by visiting our B2BNoBull.com website. That is the numeral 2. Or find us wherever you listen to your podcast. Thanks again, Klaus. Your wisdom is going to be eternal.
Thank you.